Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I'm so fortunate to be joined by everybody's favorite guest. I got to get your title right.
The Director of Student Engagement.
See, because you said something different yesterday when you were on the other show. You called it the Student Engagement Director. So Which one is it?
Whatever I feel like saying.
Whatever you feel like calling. Adrienne Thoman, Student Engagement Director here at Central Penn College. Adrienne, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Well, I want to start off with something outside of Central Penn, if you don't mind, Adrienne. I've actually had the fine opportunity to work with you on a very new project that you're working on outside of the school, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a promotion for that. Adrienne has started and has, by this point, episode 1 already out. Episode 2 will be coming out very shortly of the Pirate Life podcast.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about this?
So I have to. It's a story of two and myself and 2 of my closest friends, and we live what we call the pirate life. You know, we joke about it because it all started from our first half marathon we ran way back in the day, which had a pirate theme. But we really try to embrace new adventures and learn and encourage each other and build each other up. And I don't know, the one day we just like we should do a podcast. We should talk about the fun stuff that we're doing and give other people kind of the opportunity to come along for the ride.
What I thought was very interesting about it was the positivity message. We recorded 2 episodes, and one of the things that's going to be a staple on the show is this positive message, this positive takeaway that you're. Why was that something that you wanted to make sure was a part of this podcast?
Well, I think that from what we've learned and what we've experienced in our own lives, the idea of having that positive mindset can change everything. Just switching from an attitude of maybe complaining or negativity to switching it around to an attitude of gratitude and optimism, it changes everything. You're focusing on solutions, not problems. And the universe brings that to you. You know, the solutions, not the problems.
Well, and one of the things that I found very interesting is you are all, I mean, marathoners, is that the term that's to
Not
be
yet.
used?
Coming May 19th, yes.
So, but you've done half marathons, which is, I am not a runner, okay? When I go to the gym, I'm fine with riding the bike, but running is just never something that really enthused me. In fact, my son, he's on the autism spectrum, and unfortunately, there aren't very many sports that he's able to do. Now, we are part of the Challenger baseball, which is fun, but one thing he loved was running. So we signed him up for the running, and he loves to run, but he'll run for a little bit, and then he'll walk for a little bit.
That sounds like us. That's perfect.
But in the running, they wouldn't let him do that. He had to enter the walking because the only way that they let you in the running is if you run the entire
you have
time.
To run the whole time.
And so I had to follow him. I had to run behind him to keep him running. And after about a couple of times of that, I said, "Okay, we're done with this." But yeah, I think it's very interesting. Running was just never something that, you know, was something that was enjoyable for me, but I love biking.
Yeah.
And that is enjoyable for me. So I can understand certainly how, you know, doing something like that builds that camaraderie. I wish you the best. And we're going to keep doing this show. So we're looking forward to continued episodes. Do you know where that's going to be, where people could find that?
The podcast? So right now we have a Facebook page that we are just starting called the Pirate Life Podcast. And I think right now we'll start with that as the point of contact to look for us. But
and certainly anyone can email you if they're interested in more.
Absolutely.
All right, well, best of luck on the Pirate Life podcast. I look forward to recording with you again. But we do want to come back to, we are back here for our spring term here at Central Penn College. And there were a few things before we get to everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3 here at the end of the show. There were a few things that we wanted to chat about. The first thing is Club Fair. You're going to try something a little bit different this term. That's going to take place on Wednesday, April the 10th from 11 to 1. And that's going to be on the ATEC first and second floor.
Yep. So we're always trying to revamp it. I feel like every term we try to just tweak it a little bit to make it the best possible club fair that it can be. Last time it was the first term that we had the scheduling changes. So we had that half-hour time slot in the middle of the day that we were trying to figure out how best to work around. So we figured the afternoon actually wasn't last term we had done 2 different time slots, one around noon and one later in the afternoon. And the afternoon session just wasn't heavily trafficked. So we're going to put all our energy in that lunchtime time slot, get everybody there, get the pizza there. But then we're going to make sure that all the information stays up and on display for anybody that comes through outside of the 11 to 1 hours.
And I got to tell you, from my perspective, for the club that I'm the advisor of, obviously the Nightly News, honestly, almost every single student I met at Club Fair originally. And while maybe it took them a little prodding to start coming to the meetings, that was always my first point of contact. And especially for us, we need people. With our sports broadcasting that we're doing, we need a team of people. And it's something that basically anybody with any interest at all in doing, in sports can be a part of. So we're always looking for new people because this year we're planning on graduating. Almost every single one of our students that's in the club is hoping to graduate either 2019 or 2020. So we have to make sure that we keep this moving along, and Club Fair is just a great way to do that.
That's super exciting for your Rockstar students, though.
Of course, and I'm a little selfish when I say this, but I don't want them to go.
I know,
but of course they have to. That's sort of the whole point. Was curious with our new housing initiative. Do you anticipate trying anything different for summer, because we're going to have a lot more students here on campus?
I would love to do it outside again. There was one club fair where we had this perfect, beautiful outdoor weather, and we had one outside, and it was gorgeous. And I have since then really wanted to be able to do that again.
Listen, if you ever need any help planning any of this stuff, I know you do a wonderful job, but if you ever need any help, let me know.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, another thing that we want to take a look at, this is actually part of the Sexual Assault Awareness Week that we're going to be doing on the 15th through the 19th of April. And stay tuned. Megan Peterson's going to be along to talk much more about this. But there was one specific event that I wanted to highlight, and that's the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes on Wednesday the 17th. Just wanted to put that out there. Looking for clubs to help support the gentlemen that are going to be walking the mile around campus. So if any clubs are out there interested, want to be a part of this, we can certainly get you in touch with, certainly Adrienne. You can forward them, or Megan Peterson as well. So that was just something that I wanted to bring up.
I've seen those heels. They're going to be great. It's going to be such a cool event.
I'm sure it's going to be an amazing event. I think it's really cool for the whole awareness. I think that Parker Rose is going to be on here with us in just a little bit, and he's talking about what this means to him and why he has really been like one of the spearheads of this here on our campus. So it's wonderful to have one of our Nightly News Club members being an active part of this. So that's really cool. All right, another thing I want to talk about is the Family Flick Series. This is going to be on April the 20th on a Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4 in the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. This time, we'll be watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Can't wait.
So talk to me a little bit about the successes of the Family Flick Series thus far.
It's been really exciting because I know when we first started it, we were just getting the word out. So attendance was, of course we still had people there, but it just wasn't booming yet. And this last one that we had a theater full of people, not faculty, staff, and community members. So it was a really, really nice mix. Lots of kids, lots of popcorn, and it was a really, really nice afternoon. We were really glad that, I know our marketing team has been doing an incredible job of trying to get the word out about the opportunity to the community. We've been reaching out to some local schools in the area, and it was a really, really fun day.
Now, whose idea was this to start doing these?
I would say, I think it was something we came up with in the student engagement office back in the day.
I think it's a wonderful idea. We're always looking for ways to bring the community here on campus, whether it is for things like our faculty film series or whether it is, for the Family Flick series. I think it's wonderful that we're able to engage with the community in that respect. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, actually quite a unique movie. I actually got to see this when it was in the theater, and it is a cartoon, which when we were going into this, I wasn't quite sure exactly what it was, but I actually really liked it. There's some like parallel universe things going on. It's really very interesting, and it's not just the Spider-Man that you're necessarily used to. There are actually several Spider-Men and women.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yes, it's actually quite interesting.
Go, ladies.
I really enjoyed the movie, and I certainly put it out there. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to save the date for April the 20th.
And can I just say one small thing about that? Just an update on time. The original Family Flick series was at 1 p.m. beginning in our April movie. That's going to move to 2 because we're actually going to do screenings for our Lancaster students and their families in the morning. So just to give us a little more time to get back,
Awesome.
Get back to the
Fantastic. And I definitely want to make sure that we're putting anything out there, Adrienne. If there's ever anything, obviously you do a Lancaster calendar. If there's ever, we do stay fairly Summerdale centric on the Nightly News podcast when we have you on, but certainly please feel free to put it out there if you have any Lancaster stuff as well you want to chat about.
Absolutely.
One last thing I want to talk about before we get into everybody's favorite segment, Adrienne's Featured 3 here in just a moment. This is sort of my own self-promotional thing here. Baseball is coming. By this time, in fact, later today, you can hear the Nightly News, and I will certainly be one of the play-by-play commentators for our men's baseball. These are going to be all throughout the month of April, of course, weather permitting, but just wanted to go over, there's a few dates on here that I wanted to make sure everybody knew about. April the 9th will be men's home baseball at 2 and 4. We also have a game coming up on Tuesday, April the 23rd as well, and you can always go to gocpcnights.com for the full schedule and if there will be any rainouts or schedules being moved. So you can, if you're unable to make the game, you can. We are going to. Our goal, Adrienne, is to make sure that we broadcast every single home game that's on the schedule this year.
That's incredible.
So last year we did 4 games. This year there are 10 home games scheduled. And so hopefully, so long as weather permits, we're going to be doing all 10. So it's something that we're really enjoying. And it's, for me, I'm such a huge baseball fan. I actually called some games in college when I went to Slippery Rock University. And it's just amazing that I'm able to do this as part of my job. I tell people this. It's one of the greatest parts of my job. I mean, other than obviously, working with students and being a part of the Nightly News, I just absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
And it's so much fun. And we had just unbelievable numbers last year, hundreds of people tuning in. So it's something nice. And certainly for the players, when you talk to the players, they think it's amazing that their family can tune in on YouTube. So they can tune in on their phone. They can tune in on like a Roku device if you wanted to go that way. Watch it on your television. So it's something that's really cool and it's going to be there forever. So
I think it's awesome, not only for our students, our family, our faculty, staff to be able to know what's happening and be able to support our teams, but what a cool experience for our students that are able to support you in calling the game. Like, and I know I'm such a nerd, but I get so excited. Like, oh, that's Parker, that's Brian. Like, I think it's super cool to be able to hear them have that experience and be able to do it.
We have quite the team this year. It's Parker Rose, Brian Christiana, Dylan Kleintop, and Tyler Coleman are going to be a part. And then we have Andrew Day has become our photographer, so he's going to come out and take some pictures. And hopefully we can share that with marketing as well, and they can make sure that all that information gets out to everybody. But do tune in. You can just search Nightly News at Central Penn College on YouTube. That'll bring it to our channel. If you've never watched a live stream through YouTube, when we go live, which will be about 15 minutes before each game. So for a 2:00 game, we'll go on about 1:45, do a little pregame show. There'll just be a notification that comes up that the channel's live, and you click on that link, and there you go. Pretty simple.
Cool.
So looking forward to that. Many games, like I said, go cpcnights.com for more information. Okay, Adrienne, it is now that time for everybody's favorite segment.
Yes.
Adrienne's Featured 3 events for the month of April. Let's start off with event number 1.
Event number 1, Saturday, April 13th from 3 to 5 p.m. We're having a bonfire. It's the end of week 1. It's our first weekend here on campus. And you know what? We're going to have a fun event. We're going to have hot dogs over the fire. And I mean, you can't have a fire without s'mores, so we have to do that. And just have some music and some fun social time for all the students that are here.
3 to 5, though. Usually bonfires are in the evening. Why are you going with the early time there?
It went with my availability.
Your schedule,
that day,
of course. All right, so that is the bonfire, the end of week 1 bonfire. That's Saturday, April 13th from 3 to 5, and that's in the fellowship area, just north of the Boyer House. Okay, Adrienne, number 2 on Adrienne's Featured 3 event is
Tuesday, April 23rd from 11 to 1. It is the Earth Day Info and Pledge Table. Now, I'm not sure if our listeners are aware, but we do have a Central Penn College green team. Certainly the environment, I remember the first time I read 101 Things You Can Do to Save the Earth, and I think I might have been, I was probably in elementary school. I loved it. It was one of my favorite things. So the fact that we have a green team here to work toward sustainability and environmental issues here on campus, I love that. So the team is actually planning, it's Earth Day coming up, so we wanted to plan an opportunity to educate our students on recycling options here on campus, and then we're going to encourage everybody to take a pledge to be more proactive about their recycling here on campus as well.
As a spoiler alert, one of the things that the Nightly News has discussed, obviously we have our research exhibition coming up this June, and during this spring term, the Nightly News is going to be participating again as a club. I think it's something unique and a little bit different from what we typically do, but we finished second place last year, and we won the Fans' Choice Award last year, so we were very happy about that. But in my media and politics class last term, I actually learned something that I was kind of taken aback by, and I kind of just want to share this with you. We've already talked about this a little bit, but I was surprised to know that our students don't have recycling bins in their rooms, in their suites. Now, this is not saying that we do, and you've done such a wonderful job. The SGA has done a wonderful job getting recycling bins around campus, which I think is wonderful. They do have recycling. They just kind of have to sort it themselves. And so one of the things that we have discussed is doing a little primary research, developing a survey for our on-ground students who live in the suites to determine if having these bins inside of the suites might inspire them to recycle. And so you're on board with this. This is something that we are planning on doing this term, and maybe next time we have you on, we can talk a little bit more about this when we're a little bit further down the road and we kind of have a sense of if this is something that the Nightly News wants to be a part of. Because, the reason that this got brought up in my media and politics class is a lot of students, for lack of a better term, really aren't maybe as knowledgeable about civics as they should be. And so what I tried to do is each class, instead of just lecturing about the book, I tried to bring in a specific issue. So, for example, I did the national debt, I did military spending, I did the environment, and we would talk about where we currently are with these different areas. And I guess I was just really surprised how few students are even interested in recycling. And it really kind of took me aback, and I was really surprised by that. But I asked the question, and most of the students in this class were on-campus students, and I said, if you had just even a small recycling bin in your house, do you think you'd be more apt to recycle? And almost every one of them said yes, and I was kind of surprised by that. So not that they would say yes, but I was kind of surprised that this hadn't been something. And then I found out that in the past you tried to do this, and maybe the students didn't seem quite as interested. So hopefully we can get some good feedback from them, and maybe we'll get them some recycling bins.
Because SGA they were looking into getting bins in the suites and had talked about it, and they had even discussed it at their meeting and put it forward to a vote, but it didn't move forward. And the way we always operate here is the students, they're the boss. So
I'm very interested to see what ends up happening with this, because it's, number one, I think it's something that's important, it's timely, it's an excellent research topic, and we have a goal of, if the students are on board, let's get them some bins, so hopefully this is something that the Nightly News can do and get some solid information, and hopefully at some point maybe we can leave our own legacy here at the college in some small way. Okay, we have but one final event to discuss here on Adrienne's Featured 3, and that third event would be?
Well, my heart always goes to this one, our Women's Leadership Retreat. We do it every year, and this is just, for me, one of the most special weekends that we have with our female leaders and future leaders here on campus. We go to Camp Hebron. It's April 27th to the 29th, and we just have the most amazing time. So it's Megan Peterson and I, we co-facilitate it, and we bring in a lot of amazing guests and from campus and from the community that help to share their knowledge and their gifts with our students. This year the theme is Treat Yourself, and it's all about self-worth and self-love and knowing your value, not only personally but professionally too, which is certainly important when you look at women not being paid quite as much as men in the workplace, and glass ceilings and all of those kinds of things. So really knowing what we're worth in the workplace and how to work toward that. We have so much fun stuff planned for the girls this coming retreat. And
is it a secret?
Some of it, yes.
Okay. Well, then I won't pry too much.
We have a few little surprises, but I will say we're going to hike and do some guided meditations, and we're going to have a treat yourself pampering party, and we're going to do some horseback riding and high ropes and some fun stuff like that too.
Awesome. I think it's wonderful that you continue to get to do this. And now, is this a situation where you kind of seek out specific individuals and maybe inquire if they're interested in doing this? Or is this something that's, I mean, I know it's open to anybody.
It is open to all of our self-identified female students.
But do you find it easier to maybe just seek out specific individuals and explain to them the benefits of doing this? Would that help?
Absolutely. I mean, certainly a little bit of the students that I see on a day-to-day basis, I'm more likely to, hey, you need to do this. You got to come. It's going to be a blast. But I'd love to see, typically it's been predominantly our daytime students that have chosen to attend. But I'd love to see, we have online students and evening students, and it is appropriate for everyone. So,
and you know, this is not at all why you would initially do something like this. But to be honest, Adrienne, this is something that's going to it's going to look great on a resume. So I work with students all the time about creating their resumes, their LinkedIn profiles, things like that. This is something that absolutely would go front and center on someone's resume for doing something like this. I mean, it's almost like going to a conference or something. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I go to a conference, I'm putting that on my resume, on my CV, in my LinkedIn profile. This is something that absolutely could fit in there as well.
Absolutely. We have a lot of fun, but it's absolutely personal development as well.
Okay, let's do the rundown. So some of the events we talked about today, the Winter Club Fair, that would be the Spring Club Fair on Wednesday, April the 10th. That's going to be from 11 to 1 in the ATEC lobbies. We also don't want to forget the bonfire, the end of week 1 bonfire. That's going to take place on Saturday, April 13th from 3 to 5. Of course, we want to make sure that we are ready for the Sexual Assault Awareness Week. That'll be taking place during week 2, highlighted by the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event. That's going to be April 17th at 4 p.m. outside of the ATEC, on the ATEC patio. The Family Flick series, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, that'll take place at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater from 2 to 4 on Saturday, April 20th. We have the Earth Day and the Green Team Info Party. That's going to take place on April the 23rd from 11 to 1 in the ATEC lobby. And, of course, the Women's Leadership Retreat on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, April 27th through the 29th. And, of course, make sure you tune in to Central Penn Knights Baseball. That's going to be on the Nightly News YouTube channel. You can always go to gocpcknights.com for more information on their schedule, and we'll be doing all their home games. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Ever since the time that you told me and how much it bothered you that I was reading things out of order, I've been really getting on top of that.
I can't help it. Chronological order.
But of course. And everyone wants to make sure that you look up the Pirate Life podcast.
Yes.
Adrienne's new endeavor.
I got to give you a huge shout out for that because I really appreciate we are so new to podcasting, and to have a experience, a veteran podcaster like yourself be willing to take their time on their vacation to help us out. We really, really appreciate it.
Adrienne, you have done so much for me since I've been here. It's the least I can do. It really is. And I enjoyed it. You were all very fun. So I'm glad to kind of just be a fly on the wall and just making sure you sound good. Takes a lot of the pressure off of me because I don't have to host.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. All right. Well, that's it for Student Engagement Director Adrienne Thoman. Stay tuned. We're going to be coming up with Megan Peterson and Parker Rose. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the details of Sexual Assault Awareness Week. But for right now, that's it for another episode of the Nightly News Podcast. So stay tuned.
This is Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams, and you are listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we have the fine opportunity of sitting in today with one of our favorite guests, Megan Peterson, the Director of Equity and Multicultural Affairs. Megan, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And joined also by one of our Nightly News Media Club reporters and a very busy man around campus, Parker Rose. Parker, how's it going today?
It's going good, Professor Miller. It's great to be back on the podcast.
Well, our main reason for being here on this fine afternoon is the upcoming Walk a Mile in Her Shoes initiative that Parker's going to be taking part of, so we're going to learn much more about that. But in a more general sense, we're going to be talking about the upcoming Sexual Assault Awareness Week that's going to be taking place on campus during week 2 of our upcoming term. So I guess the first question will be coming around to Megan. Megan, why was this something that you really not only wanted to just be a part of and you know, really build up some activities here on campus, but you literally have something going on every single day of the week. Why was this something that you really wanted to take and run with?
Yeah, so this is the second year that we're doing a full week of activities for Sexual Assault Awareness Week. We've always previously observed Sexual Assault Awareness Day, but sexual assault is such a serious issue and is so prevalent on college campuses across the United States that I really wanted to bring more attention to the issue and to the issues that surround it. So talking about consent and gender violence and all of those things that interplay when we're talking about sexual assault. So I thought it was really important to develop that full week of programming. So this year we'll have about 15 programs over the course of 5 days for students, faculty, and staff to really engage in this topic.
And some of these events, certainly Word Wednesday, which we had the fine opportunity to be a part of this term. Parker was there. You're going to be doing a Word Wednesday on the 17th of April about the word consent. Do you mind, can we just talk about that a little bit right now? Maybe preview what some of those conversations might be like?
Sure. So I think a lot of times when people hear the word consent or hear conversations about consent, they think it's very kind of like a legal conversation, that it's not very a practical thing to talk about in interactions with people, but it becomes more of this like contractual obligation with a partner. When really asking for consent and making sure that you have your partner's consent can be a really organic process and doesn't need to be this kind of legal clinical conversation that folks might think it is. Okay.
So some of the other things, you also have a Know Your Nine. This will be on Thursday the 18th. You have a pledge table throughout the week. Talk about a little bit more of the pledge table. What is the pledge table? Because you have that on several different occasions during Sexual Assault Awareness Week. So what are you going to be asking students, faculty, and staff to be pledging?
Yeah, so we'll be taking part in the It's On Us PA Pledge, which is a pledge to really stand up against sexual assault, to be actively asking for consent with partners. And it's part of a statewide initiative through It's On Us. So we'll be doing that pledge throughout the week, and we'll also have information at that table, various resources about local agencies, about consent, about sexual assault. So we'll have a lot of information available for folks if they want to stop by that table at any time.
And also to on the first day of our celebration here on campus of Sexual Assault Awareness Week, you're going to be doing something called the Hunting Ground Screening and Discussion. I'm assuming that's some type of documentary?
It is. The Hunting Ground is a documentary about sexual assault specifically on college campuses, and kind of the journey that a number of students go through trying to get justice when they do bring a complaint to college officials. So it'll really give us a chance to discuss what the process looks like on our campus, to educate students about what to do if they need to make a complaint, and how that process works, but also to kind of be able to discuss how it hasn't always worked well in the past and why some of the laws such as Title IX have been bolstered to protect survivors in the way that it does now.
Just in case somebody maybe isn't familiar with how to, if something like this, heaven forbid, would happen to them, what would be their first recourse? What would be their first step to at least, identify that there's something that's happened?
Right, yeah. If a student were to ever experience this, and hopefully they wouldn't, but if they do, contacting my office would be their best bet. They can also, of course, go to our public safety office if they are feeling unsafe in the moment and need to report there. But coming to my office, I can talk a student through what their rights and options are. I can get them connected with outside resources. And also our counseling office is a good place for students to go. Our counselors are the only 100% confidential resource that students have on campus.
Which I think is a very important thing to mention, because your office doesn't necessarily have the total confidentiality that the counselors do. Can you maybe explain why that is?
Sure. So in my office, I do have federal regulations that I need to be aware of and be following with students to make sure that we're protecting the campus community. So my office does everything that I can to maintain student confidentiality, but depending on what's disclosed, we might need to take action to make sure that the campus community and that student is safe. Whereas our campus counseling office is 100% confidential. They are the only office on campus that does not need to report to my office if a student discloses sexual assault to them.
Okay. Well, and I appreciate that. So we will put all of your contact information on here, just on the off chance that somebody, has gone through something like this or may go through something like this. At least they have the way that they can get in touch with you should they need to.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to point out that if a student has experienced this, they don't need to have experienced it on campus to reach out to me. Even if they've experienced something off campus not related to the college, if they still need support services and need to be connected with local resources, my office can still help them with that.
Fantastic. And it's wonderful that you're able to provide this to students who may not really know anywhere else to turn. All right, well, one of the main events, if you will, of Sexual Assault Awareness Week is going to be the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. This is going to take place, weather permitting, so long as we don't have any monsoons, we're going to do this Wednesday, April 17th at 4 o'clock, and you're going to be meeting on the ATEC patio. So I want to bring Parker in on this. Parker, ever since this first was announced and really talked about here on campus, you've been very active in discussing it, not only discussing it, helping people fundraising yourself, but also to a certain point trying to get more people involved in this. So we talked a little bit off air about why this is something that's so important to you, but can you share that with the listeners? Why is this a cause that really sticks out in your mind as something that you want to be a part of?
That's a great question. I want to be a part of raising awareness to put an end to sexual assault, rape, or gender violence because back where I'm from, there's a lot of people I knew back home that were victims of sexual assault and all. And seeing that, it's horrible. Seeing people suffer and feel like it's their fault that this happened to them when it's not their fault. So taking the initiative to help put an end to sexual assault also helps me better understand what a woman walking down the street or what they're doing every day goes through with how sexual assault happens, and helping out with that makes me feel better to understand how to put an end to it.
But this isn't your first time being involved in this, right? You had some previous experience.
I did. When I was in middle school, more specifically the 6th grade, my father and myself both participated in the event ran by the SARC Center back home in the county, and we did a walk a mile in the shoe. It wasn't a full mile, but we walked from one of the fire companies down to the Maroon Sports Bar at the time, and we did it 2 years in a row, and then the next couple of years they didn't have enough male volunteers to do the walk. So then when I came to college, Janet Bixler, the theater director, came up to me and said that we wanted to plan a trip to New York and we needed help fundraising for our tickets. So I was like, so we came up with a couple of fundraisers. And then at the last club fair I came up with the idea of doing a half and half profit with the Women's Sexual Assault Center, the YWCA of Carlisle, and the CP Players to do a split profit fundraiser, and Megan was very supportive of it, and so was Janet, and I'm proud that we're bringing this campaign to campus to raise awareness.
So this is something that you're doing to kind of help out the players, which you're the president of course, but you're also doing it because this is a cause that really means something to you, and you hope that you're going to be able to, provide some, not only just the money is of course important, but the awareness too, Parker. I mean, this is something that you're going to, you've written a story, and we'll have that posted if it's not already. You're going to get some really positive feedback, hopefully, from doing this.
And that's the goal of the whole thing. Like, soon when we made announcement that we're doing this campaign, we had numerous numbers of men stepped up. Like, one of the men I know, Romeo's walking it, and a lot of the student body are willing to do it. And hearing that is very supportive, and I'm proud of the male volunteers willing to do it to help put an end to this. To sexual assault, gender violence, and rape.
I think it's amazing that all the gentlemen are so involved with this because, honestly, sometimes, and maybe I could be wrong about this, but sometimes it's the gentlemen that maybe aren't quite as educated on some of these types of things as maybe they should be. So I think it's fantastic. Well, let's talk about the event itself. Megan, tell us what to expect from the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event that you're having here on campus.
Sure. So I think this is going to be a really neat event. So we have our men who have volunteered to fundraise and raise awareness in walking heels. We have 14 of them, so that's very exciting. But this event is open to the entire campus community. So it's not just the 14 men that are walking. So we will gather at the ATEC patio. We'll have some opening remarks. We have a representative from the YWCA coming to speak, which we're really excited about. We have a representative from Marzy's Law of PA coming to share some remarks. So once we have those opening remarks and that kind of setting the frame for the event, we'll take a walk on a loop through campus. We will be going across the bridge, down through the student fellowship area, looping back up through the apartments, and then ending back in ATEC. And throughout that walk, all of the participants that are participating in this walk will get to go through a number of exhibits. And these kind of interactive exhibits are aimed at kind of educating participants about the prevalence of sexual assault on college campuses, about street harassment and gendered harassment in those types of avenues, about the barriers to victims when they do try to report, and some of the victim-blaming language that our culture often uses. And then finally about the personal impact that sexual assault and rape and abuse and gendered violence has on members of our own community, and hearing kind of their personal thoughts on that. So we have some really powerful exhibits that we're working on that everybody will be able to walk through.
You mentioned barriers. Can we talk about what some of those might be? What are some of the barriers for individuals that might be victims of sexual assault?
Sure. So you think of, so there's a number of barriers. So some of the barriers might just be the fear of going to a hospital to get a rape kit done. That's a very kind of scary process, or can be. So that can be a barrier to reporting. Another barrier is reporting to law enforcement. It can be a barrier if it's kind of a he said, she said type of scenario. It can be really scary and intimidating to try to be kind of proving your story. If you think about any other type of crime that might happen to someone, say my wallet got stolen, people's first reaction would be, oh my word, that's so terrible. But if I say I got raped, the first reaction might be, well, were you drinking? Were you leading them on? Like, you might have seemed like you were flirting. Are you sure that's what happened? It's the only type of crime where the first reaction is not to believe survivors. And that can be an incredibly damaging thing for a survivor to hear when they're trying to disclose what happened to them.
Why is that the way our culture has moved? Why is that our first instinct? And I know this is probably a question you don't have the answer to. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm just asking a rhetorical question, but that shouldn't be. I mean, we should be able to support one another, especially if someone confides in us something of that nature. That it was probably very difficult for them to even admit that happened. And why is it that way? It just, I don't know. It kind of bothers me when you say that's often people's first instincts.
Right, it's very unfortunate, and that's why events like this that we're doing are really aimed at combating that kind of cultural and systemic reaction that we have to survivors, and really trying to turn that around.
Well, I got to tell you that we are so looking forward to this. Parker, so this is something that you're going to be a major part of. Let's say you're still maybe trying to get some last minute people that maybe just want to come along and join what you guys are doing. Well, how can they help the day of? Maybe the signups have come and gone, but how might you have others help and chip in on this?
Well, we can have people like help with like how we're setting up is like in the front we're going to have the men in the high heels who raise the money and walk behind in front. We're also going to have some female volunteers who are going to help coach the men walking in heels, because it is hard to walk in heels. And then behind we're going to have that. Behind them we're going to have the community that came to the event to walk with us to and support. But other ways they can help if they want to do last minute donations to a walker or just donate to the YWCA in general. They can help in many ways.
When you're talking about the donations, and obviously you mentioned some of that's going to the Rape Crisis Center and the YWCA in Carlisle, what does that mean to you to be able to when this is all said and done and you go to hand them that money, what's that going to mean to you?
It's going to mean a lot, knowing that the amount of money that we had to raise is helping find resources for that, to realize that women who are victims of sexual assault are not alone, for them to have that support from the YWCA, and also the men that helped raise money makes it feel like you're not alone. We're here for you. We're here to help. Don't be afraid. We're here to help find you help and put an end to what has happened to you. So knowing the raising the $50 goal or more is big to me, and all the other men should feel the same way when they reach that goal, or any money value they raise is important.
Awesome. Megan, what does it mean to you to be able to not only just volunteer with and assist, but make that donation on behalf of the Central Penn players? What's that going to mean to you to be able to do that?
I think it's so important to show as a campus community that this is an issue that we take seriously, and this is an issue that we're really rallying behind across campus. And I think it really sends an important message to our students that this is something that we care about, not just on our own campus, but in the community, and supporting the resources that we have in the community as well.
Awesome. Well, so the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes is going to be on Wednesday, April 17th. That's going to be starting at 4 o'clock on the ATEC patio. But there are, as I mentioned, there's a lot of other things going on that week. Do you want to talk about some of the other events that you have that maybe we haven't highlighted thus far?
Sure, I can talk briefly about some of the other ones. On Tuesday evening, we're going to have a French fry bar, which will be a really fun way for us to talk about consent. We're also going to be doing condom bingo, where we'll be talking again more about consent and safer sex practices. We also have the Know Your 9 event, which you briefly mentioned earlier. That'll be a drop-in event at the Cultural Diversity Center where students come in and just learn more about Title IX and what that means to them in practical application. A lot of times when I ask students what Title IX is, they kind of give me a funny look. They're like, I don't know. So it can be a really good way for students to come in and find out how Title IX can actually help and impact them in their day-to-day. Another event that I'm really excited about is we have a representative from Marsy's Law of PA, which is a crime victims Bill of Rights law that does not currently exist in PA, but that they are working to pass. Will be coming to speak about that law.
Now, when you say a crime victims Bill of Rights, what does that mean?
It means that it would really codify into law some basic rights for victims, such as knowing when the perpetrator of the crime against them is up for parole, or knowing when they're released, and having information and help along the way, and really making sure that that's kind of codified and consistent across the state.
How many states in the union have something like this on the books?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I'm not sure how many have already passed, but I know Pennsylvania has not. However, that will be going up for vote in April, so we're hopeful.
So we're more a follower than a leader here, but at least it's good that we are making strides to be a little bit more progressive in terms of things like this.
Yes, we're not the first, but we're certainly not the last to be working on this.
That's a good thing. So, Megan, I'm going to put many of these events, I'm going to try to post along with this podcast. You can certainly also take a look at the April activities calendar. Adrienne always does a really nice job of trying to be as concise as possible on the different events. But this has to be super busy. I mean, you got to be looking forward to a very, very, very busy week here. So how are you going to balance that? Lots of coffee?
Lots of coffee. I will be running on all the caffeine that week, but I'm very excited about the lineup of events that we have.
That's awesome. Megan, we really appreciate all of your hard work in terms of putting these programs together, and I certainly hope that in some small way the Nightly News Podcast is able to get some people out to your events. And Parker, thank you very much. You are one of the most advocacy-centric students that we have here. You're constantly trying to get the word out about things like this. You're constantly trying to work with other clubs to try to help them get their word out. Every time I see you, it's, hey, we have this going on, hey, we have that going on. Why can't more people be like you?
Professor Miller, I'm going to be honest with you. You are not the first person that said that. I hear that all the time.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. It really is. But I think it's, you know what, this is something special. I think that this is something that I think it's wonderful because it's going to be excellent for a visual for what this actually is. It's also going to be excellent for the students who actually are a part of this to learn more about this as individuals. And hopefully this might propel some of you to become leaders on campus. I mean, you already are, but maybe some other people who are a part of this, just really kind of changing the discussion about sexual assault and really bringing that awareness to the forefront.
And that's what I want to say. I really want to thank Megan for being on board with the idea. I want to thank all the men who took the initiative to be a part of the campaign. And I want to thank all the donors who donated money to the campaign to help us reach the $50 goal that we all need. The support from the community, the support from Megan, and all the males who are willing to do the campaign, I really appreciate each and every one of you for helping us out, and thank individually for that.
Well, in some small way, you're welcome on behalf of all of those people who have helped you. So, Parker, thank you very much for being a part of this, and I hope that it's just a nice day out and everything goes off without a hitch.
I hope so, too.
Megan, any final comments here, any final maybe pleas for those out there listening to get involved?
I think really just to take advantage of all the programming that's happening during Sexual Assault Awareness Week, to please make an effort to come to at least one of the programs. You're guaranteed to learn something and come away with it. And then please also come out to this Walk a Mile in Her Shoes event to support the students, faculty, and staff that are walking, but also to educate yourself about this issue. I think it's going to be a really powerful event.
Awesome. Well, thank you both very much for coming down to the podcast today and talking a little bit more about Sexual Assault Awareness Week. That's going to be next week, week number 2, and it'll be the 15th through the 19th. Some of the big events on Monday the 15th, the Hunting Grounds screening and discussion. That'll be at 4 o'clock. There's going to be pledge tables Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the ATEC lobby. You're also going to have the Fry Bar and Condom Bingo on April the 16th, Word Wednesday on the 17th, as well as, of course, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes at 4. You're going to have your Know Your 9. You're going to have the Marsy's Law from Pennsylvania on Thursday the 18th, and you're going to have a really cool closing ceremony. What's the closing ceremony going to be like?
So we're still pulling together all the details from that, but you can expect kind of a recap of some of the events that happened, hopefully some personal stories from students who went to the events to talk about what they learned or how it impacted them, and a couple special guests as well.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming down talking about Sexual Assault Awareness Week. I really hope all of your programming goes off without a hitch. I hope the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes is very successful. And Parker, I want to thank you for being a part of that and being one of the leaders here on campus.
Thank you for having us on the podcast to help spread the word about the campaign.
Anything I possibly can do, my friend. You know I'm always willing to do that. And Megan, thank you very much. Obviously, I know that, of course, this is part of your job, but I think you've went above and beyond on this particular area of what you do here. And of course, this is only one small part of your job. So thank you very much for putting all this together.
Well, thank you so much for having me here to be able to talk about what's coming up and really encourage folks to get involved.
You are certainly welcome to come down anytime that you have the opportunity. All right, everybody, that's it for another episode of the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, so I'm going to be bidding everyone a fond adieu for Parker Rose, Nightly News reporter, for the Director of Equity and Multicultural Affairs, Megan Peterson. This is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time on the Nightly News Podcast.